Hey everyone, welcome to Project Esports podcast for April 8th. Andrew's taking the day off, and we actually have a special guest here with us, Jonah. So Jonah, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Hey, I'm Jonah, or Reed, formerly known as Best Student. I currently coach Northeastern Esports, their varsity program, as well as WaveCheck Esports, WaveCheck_W rather. We're an open division team looking to get into contenders this next season. And I also do some freelance commentary on the side. And I come from a really long line of people invested in esports from Rutgers Esports as well.
So I think this is the first time we actually have another collegiate esports person on this show. I don't think we had one before, so this is exciting. Don't worry, James, we're going to have a couple of stories for you to talk about too, so you'll be able to pop off. But I think we're going to dive just right into the collegiate esports. So the first thing we have up is the Overwatch Collegiate Championship that's going to go on at ESPN. So this is just a part of the ESPN Big Collegiate event that they're going to have, I guess is the best way to describe it. So this one, it's actually we talked about this a few weeks ago, but just want to touch on this because obviously we have Jonah here, and then also because they just went into the top 8. So that's kind of a big deal. And so the top 8 currently, TESPA's running this portion of it, which, I mean, we talked about before, this is a really big event, and they have like TESPA and CSL and ESPN all coming together for this. So this is a huge tournament and really special occasion. But the top 8 teams are Utah, Harrisburg University, Rutgers, Maryville, Orange Coast, TESPA, Carleton, New Jersey IT, and I had to click on this one name, GCU Esports. I think they're out of Phoenix, Arizona. So this is the top 8, and obviously Rutgers is in there. So
yeah. So I did an article actually on the top 10 teams, or top 20 teams rather, out of preseason, and all of these teams were in the articles. Utah, of course, they have a full-on esports program built out of their game design program. They're a scrim partner of Northeastern as well. We like to play them every now and then. I'm friends with their manager and their coach as well, Snap, Joe Johnson, that Roadhog player you remember from season 1 and 2. What a great guy. He has a great mind for the game too. And for the rest of the schools, I mean, Harrisburg, Maryville, those 2 schools, full ride scholarships for players. They pulled them straight from contenders, form of Hitnot, Mac, Insomniac, Somez. All these guys are, veterans inside of Overwatch. And of course, you have schools like Rutgers, which I'm affiliated with. They obviously have a really strong team. I talked with their manager, Beanies, quite a lot, and actually this year's team is probably the strongest Rutgers has ever had. That's a little bittersweet for me because I used to be on the Rutgers team, so it's like, I'm not part of the best team we've ever had. They're a great group of guys, and they finally have their everything together. They went to LAN for TESPA in 2017 when I was coaching them. And then 2019, now they're going back to LAN, and only one player remains on that roster. So it's kind of like his own personal redemption.
Nice storyline. I like that. So how do you feel about all the teams? Is there any team in particular that you're looking out for to get, first place pick or anything, or maybe top 2?
I think... So my heart is going to say Rutgers, right? I want Rutgers to win. But my brain says Maryville, all right? Maryville is just a powerhouse. They've been scrimming as early as, 2018, January. So it's like a year and a half now. These guys have Hypnot, the former Boston Uprising Academy main tank player. Guy's a mastermind. He was actually going to go to Rutgers, too, for school since he lives in that area, in the tri-state area. They ended up getting the full ride to Maryville instead. So it's like, they snatched the best Rutgers talent, and now they're going to win versus Rutgers. It's like, for me, the bracket comes out. Maryville comes out of the A side of the bracket. B side of the bracket comes out Rutgers, and that's what I think the finals will be predicted, for at least for me. And I still think that a lot of these other schools will show up big. Orange Coast College, they're the only community college in the entire tournament. I mean, not in the entire tournament, but in the top 8 rather. And it just happened that they just have Slayer Gramps and a couple other really solid Grandmaster players. So it's anyone's game, but it's mostly Maryville's to lose.
that's really hyped to hear, actually, like all the different like storylines coming into this. So one thing I'm actually really interested in is I've seen a few of these teams frequently, and I'm sure, James, you've seen these too, just from all the articles coming out on all these schools picking up different collegiate esports programs, actually pushing for it, doing scholarships and all that. So do you think that a lot of these teams benefit from that? I mean, obviously they did, but I mean, is it kind of just a nice addition to their team already? Or do you think the schools actually showed up, they paid to get players, they paid to get really good coaches, they put the money in, it's really paying off for them? Like, do you think that's the case? Or do you think it just kind of happenstance? Because we do see a couple other schools there that they just happen to get some solid players, and they just happen to have really good student staff, and they're able to put a really good team together, a really good showing.
I mean,
I guess kind of at anyone can kind of take this.
I could have sworn you said James there.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, no, I don't know. I hate to say that like money draws in the talent, but it really does, right? Like, I mean, you can get really lucky and blessed with a very like devout crew and staff and stuff like that. But I mean, if the funding's there, it's gonna funding pushes the extra little, bit. Like, I mean, if you perform well and your team's doing well and stuff like that, that's great. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know, like, especially in the collegiate scene where, I hate to say it, and Jonah, we even talked about this later, like, everybody's broke, man. Like, everybody's broke in the scene, right? Getting that extra bit of funding just does so much. So I don't money going into this isn't a bad thing.
Yeah. To add to that, I think that with athletics now recognizing the importance of having at least a club sports program, such as a school like Northeastern, they have, fully funded club sports room where they have, 12 PCs that you guys, not you guys, that, students as well as the team can play on. That's where they train. That's where they practice. That's where they play the tournaments themselves for their league, Overwatch, Rocket League, Apex, whatever team that you have there. So as we see the development more of esports, you're going to start to see a lot of these varsity schools, these traditional Big Ten schools, start to, pour money into esports. And for Rutgers' part, their club budget is very much that of student lives. It's the average amount of money you get from for being a student organization on campus. And the bulk of the money that's being funded for Scarlet Classic is all student raised through company outside sponsors. And also the main thing is that athletics at every school has a substantially large marketing budget. Every school has a huge marketing budget. And that's where esports gets its money from. It gets it from the marketing budget of other things that want to support it. So if Student Life wants more students, they'll reach out more STEM students, they'll reach out to esports. If athletics wants more popularity for their traditional sports, they'll reach out to esports. And that's how they get funding.
I think this would be a really hyped event. I'm particularly really excited for Street Fighter, actually, because I just want to see some good collegiate Street Fighter. I mean, I'm always the one on here talking about fighting games and everything, but I'm hyped for it. And it's really interesting because what they did for Street Fighter is they were like, hey, everyone, by the way, we're just having open qualifiers for this at a bunch of different collegiate events, which I think is super hype. And it just promotes the collegiate scene even more by having people in the area actually show up to a lot of these events. And I know specifically Street Fighter V, out of all the different fighting games, it might not be doing the best right now in terms of attendance and everything. So this is definitely something really good for the community in general. I know there's a ton of really good players that are just going to college and stuff that want to show up to these really good events, and this really gives them an avenue for that. Which, speaking of which, Scarlet Classic is having one of those open Street Fighter events, which is really hype because I know that area in particular, which is Jersey and then up into New York, the tri-state area. I think that's what it's called, right? The tri-state area.
Mm-hmm. Tri-state,
huge for fighting games, enormous. So I really hope this turns at least the fighting game portion of that into a huge tournament.
Mm-hmm. I think it's I think this is a really smart move by them too, because I feel with the FGC, the accessibility is a lot easier than a lot of other games, right? I mean, the system requirements is you literally buy a console, you bring it, you can get a pad if you want, but I mean, you can do it with a controller too, you know what I mean? So I feel as far as especially going back to the financials, I mean, for a student, this that avenue of esports is so much more like it's such an easier route for them to hopefully get recognized and picked up and stuff like that. Vice, like lugging your PC everywhere, right? So
yeah,
I think it's a nice little touch.
It's a lot more interactive and social too. Like at Rutgers, at club, we usually have like a whole room or 2 rooms dedicated to FGC, and they're guys that just bring their controllers in, and they can just play and talk to everybody, and it's like a lot more of a community FGC is than like Overwatch or League of Legends, games where you have to like sit at home and play on your PC and go on Discord and talk to your friends. You can't really just like see the person you're playing against, talk to them, shake their hand or whatever.
Yeah, it really is such a different type of player, you know what I mean? Because it's so much more communal, and it forces that that person to person interaction, because the guy's usually sitting like right next to you, you know what I mean? Which is nice, and I love that. Like, and I mean, and it's huge for collegiate to really promote that, because I mean that's you really want to network in college too, right? So it's just kind of like a best of both worlds in that, and I think it's almost where. I think the only downside is that it's not as big as like Overwatch and League of Legends and stuff like that, but I think it definitely promotes better life skills for people in the college, like in that college age group. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, out of the 750 attendants we had for Scarlet Classic 4 last year, over 300 of them were there just for Smash. So if you think about just Smash, that's almost 50% of your all attendees are just there for Smash, to play Smash, not even to watch Smash. So it's like, when you think about it, right, like FGC is kind of, that original kind of game, that like the original style of game rather, that brought people together. And, this year, since we have the RAC, the athletic center where basketball games usually happen, it's such an upgraded size. And with that huge upgraded size, I mean, come on, man, you're going to see setups like with rows down, the athletic, like where the basketball court would be. And you just see like Swedish Light popping off versus some random no names, and like a random no name takes a stock and everyone's like, what's happening? What's going on? Why is this guy losing? So yeah, like FGC, and in terms of Rutgers itself, like all the guys over there, Justin Winfrey, Carlito Sage, all those guys at the FGC community at Rutgers, they're huge in this. This is their absolute passion. And honestly, I've learned a lot from them, even though, because, I come from League of Legends, Overwatch, CSGO, barely any FGC. They taught me so much in terms of, how the game works, and like how handshakes, the etiquette, the proper social like skills that you need to play FGC against one another.
That's just it, right? Like, I mean, it really is like, I mean, this is why it gets the grassroots like moniker, right? Like this is really why, right? And Dylan will beat this horse dead, right? Like grassroots esports is like his like calling card. So I'm glad you're feeding into it, Jonah.
Yeah, it's so perfect though, and just to reiterate on the point that you were making earlier, it is perfect for these college students, because Jonah, like you were saying, like there is etiquette that comes behind it too, like the handshakes and stuff, and like what to do during games and how to be like a well-mannered player, and it's really important because like a lot of people, this is their first like experience in something competitive like this. I know me personally, I didn't grow up playing sports or anything, so whenever I got into esports, that was my first time doing anything really competitive. And then I picked up a whole bunch of different things on how to, compete very well. I came from StarCraft 2, so like always starting the game out with like good luck, have fun, and saying like good game afterwards and stuff, and really instilled that in me. But it is really hyped to see. So I went to the Nittany Invitational a couple weeks ago at Penn State. I talked about that on the show. But during the Street Fighter tournament there, I saw something that like reiterated some of those points into me, of where, a bunch of like people were playing. There were some new people that showed up. Some people from like Pittsburgh and Philly showed up to play. And the way that they interacted with like the local community there was just amazing, because they were all talking, they were all having fun. It was super serious during the games, but afterwards they were like laughing, joking around. They were like on Facebook. They're like, oh, like what's your name on Facebook? Like we'll play online sometime. And it's really good to see, because this is really, really, really good for college students to be able to like get out there, be social, make new friends, make connections like that. And it's really awesome to see.
Yeah, FGC is a blessing. I mean, it's one of the original starters like StarCraft 2.
So I actually just want to shift gears slightly. So not actually too much, but still staying on collegiate esports. I actually want to talk about the NYXL Spring Rally that they're having. I think the total prize pool is $10,000, right?
Yep.
Yeah, $10,000. So, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm pretty sure I've been following it to make sure I have it right. But basically what they did is they partnered with a few colleges and kind of ran, I guess, kind of like a social media hype thing that was kind of going on, where you can kind of cheer for certain colleges, and the top 16 teams that got like the most cheers from the most amount of people got placed into a top 16 bracket, and it ran through to the top 4. And then I believe the top 4 is going to be played at the Scarlet Classic. Is that correct?
Yep. Like NYXL and Rutgers were actually really good partners. We had a great meeting with them like a year and a half ago, 2017 summer. So that was a very long time ago. We got to go to their offices, hang out with them, and they treated us to dinner. And really what we've been trying to build is like kind of an unofficial sponsorship, or partnership rather, with NYXL, that they kind of support collegiate esports. We support them as much as we can, whether that be offering, future students that could maybe go into their company and work, such as Adam, and as well as just a lot of volunteers for whenever they have any events. You think about the homecoming, the NYXL, the watch party tournament, all of those. A lot of the Rutgers esports community members are very, very active, whether that be cheering, helping out, volunteering, doing whatever. And for the side of the top 16, I mean, it really goes to show that you can kind of be any school as long as you have the support from your community. It actually puts you somewhere else on the map, puts you on the map. Because what was so interesting was that during the cheers, they were actually showcasing all the numbers in live. And it was so weird to see these schools that had never, shown up on the esports map just pop up out of nowhere. And then it was so weird because it found out later on that some schools were botting, but we removed those bots. They removed those bots, and after you remove the bots, it's still like kind of the same picture, though. You know what I mean? It's still kind of the same thing where those schools that are really unknown, like Marist College. Like I before last weekend, I had never heard of Marist College, right? And they have an insane player in default, and they just come out of nowhere and just show up, and then now they're they made top 8. But I mean, you also have UConn, NJIT, Pitt Esports. I've never heard of Pitt Esports until this past weekend either. And then they're playing Rutgers at the LAN finals. It's $10,000 up for grab. I'll be commentating. Necker Gaming will be commentating from TESPA. Henny Beanies will be commentating, so it'll be a great time. We get the whole athletic center, and probably going to end up making a really, really solid show.
Yeah, I mean, this is not only is this incredibly hype for just like collegiate esports in general, and I guess esports on the East Coast, which is something I'm really glad we're seeing big events from, is East Coast esports. It's just so good to see teams partnering up with schools, and obviously it's mutually beneficial because you benefit with schools, the schools benefit from it, and then you get a bunch of new fans, because I'm sure everyone at a bunch of these schools are NYXL fans now. And I promise I'm not saying this just because you're on the podcast, but this is really hype for Scarlet Classic, and Rutgers is doing really great. I promise I'd be hyping up Rutgers esports even if you weren't on here, because they are doing really great stuff. And the fact that this is at Scarlet Classic is huge. It's a huge deal. Like they have the finals for this, and then they also have the huge Street Fighter tournament on top of it, just being a normal giant collegiate event on top of that. Like, this is huge. Like, this is going to be a giant event. And I'm super hyped to see the coverage for this.
Yeah, we're aiming for 2,000 people, I believe. So that's a tall order, but I think we can get there. I mean, if we rented out a giant arena, so.
I mean, yeah, I think this is probably one of the smartest moves that we've seen out of an Overwatch team individually, as far as creating PR hype and stuff like that. You basically just secured yourself 16 schools that want to feed into you. You know what I mean? And that's just through putting on this alone. And I mean, I'm sure some teams are kind of region block too. Some of the West Coast teams are probably well, it's on the other end. I don't want to bother, right? But I mean,
why can't I go to that?
Yeah, exactly, right, exactly. So, I'm I didn't really pay super close attention to this, and then Dylan brought it up tonight, and I was like, oh my god, man, this was a slick move on their part, and I can promise that he hypes up Rutgers on like a regular basis, off the record, on the record. Like it's a regular thing. It's a regular thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're from Penn State, right? I mean, at Rutgers we have a chant about Penn State. I can't really say the words, but I mean, we like Penn State esports. We just don't like Penn State.
Oh yeah, no. Like on like the the traditional sports level, like no, like absolutely no go. On the esports level, we're all friends.
Yeah, esports, it's really about a giant community where everyone's like really empathetic and helps each other out. That's like what NYXL is doing. That's so cool. It's like they're being super empathetic towards the collegiate scene, something that we've not seen from these other OWL teams. I mean, you have like the LA Valiant like collegiate cup thing, but I mean, there wasn't a big prize for that. There wasn't like a huge stream for that. I mean, it was like an online event, and it was just a mix between like half pros, half collegiate players. NYXL's already done that pretty much at their LAN shop. So, I mean, they're just doing it even bigger now with the Spring Rally. I've not heard of a 10K prize pool from just a single OWL team before. Maybe like $1,000, but...
So, I actually just want to talk about one team in particular that made the top 4, and that's Pitt. Because I have a special story about Pitt. So, back in my day, old man esports story time, but back in my day, we had an event at Penn State, and we invited Pitt League of Legends out to play. These dudes show up, wreck our brackets, absolutely demolish our brackets, beat like our A team, I guess, the team that like we send out to all like the big events and stuff. And so we just had like local like teams that like the club threw together, and we played them in the finals. And these dudes were just straight up goons, like in the best way possible. Like they were in the room just like screaming, getting like super hyped. And like they all texted like the entire club and stuff. And like as soon as they were playing in the finals, like our stream numbers like jumped 100 because like they just had like everyone at Pitt just like watching it, and they were just like going nuts in the chat and stuff. And it was great. They have a really interesting esports community there because they get incredibly hyped. Like they're one of the most hyped esports communities by far, and which is strange because like I haven't seen them out to many events. They're just like this. I think they are doing a little bit more with the Pittsburgh Knights. I think they're like more of like an FPS team in Pittsburgh. So I know they do a lot of stuff there, and Pittsburgh actually has a lot of collegiate clubs. It's like them, Carnegie Mellon, Temple might be Philly, but they have a bunch of stuff out there that they all play games and stuff together. But damn, they're hype. I'm excited to see. I hope they can perform well.
I mean, on a more realistic side, I think they're just going to get stomped, honestly. I think it's going to be the first game on stream. I think they're going to get hard stomped by Rutgers. They're just going to go home and cry. It's, how it is.
Oh, my God, man. Jonah, they have families, dude. Come on, man.
I mean, I don't care if it's 100 people in chat crying. I mean, it's still 100 people in chat crying. I mean, it's like,
that's
what
true.
Can you do?
So I think we're going to wrap up the Collegiate Esports talk, but do you just want to fill everyone in on this event? And I mean, you're going to be casting it, so give us the details and all that.
Yeah, so it's going to start at around 10 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, April 14th. It'll be at the Rutgers Athletic Center on Livingston campus. So if you want to Google it, you want to come through, you want to play in not Fortnite, sorry. I debated everyone. League of Legends, Overwatch, CSGO, if you want to watch any of those games, if you want to meet NYXL members, TESPA members, CSL members, if you want to network, if you're just there to, in the tri-state to play Smash, you should come through. It'll be, again, on April 14th on Sunday. We'll open the doors at 10 a.m. and I hope to see a lot of people there. And I can't wait to commentate some Overwatch. And I can't wait to see Rutgers stomp.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But I guess we'll shift gears over to some, I guess, Battle Royale talk. We want to talk that, specifically Ninja, which, I mean, obviously he's always in the news, one of the biggest streamers and stuff, but he kind of had a little blow up and now has like a little feud with Fortnite right now. So on stream, I think it was yesterday or the day before, like, later in the day, he basically he didn't like rage out or anything, but he was just like, yeah, I think I'm done with Fortnite until they fix the queues. So apparently there was a huge update that kind of changed how the game plays a lot, and I guess he was just not having fun with these new updates, and so he's like boycotting Fortnite now, which, I mean, he's like the biggest Fortnite streamer, so this is like kind of a big deal for them, because how many players do you think got into this game just because they watched Ninja, because he always has the top stream numbers? So I don't know. I think this is kind of a big deal that he's kind of using that platform to boycott patches. I mean, obviously we've seen this before with like League of Legends, but I don't think the impact has been quite as big.
I mean, yeah, so I was actually the one who linked the article in here, because Fortnite is the only competitive game, because it does have a competitive scene now. It has a stupid amount of money into it, where it is so almost revolving around this one entity, right? Like Ninja really does control huge portions of this game's market, of its player base, of its viewership, and all that good stuff. And yeah, basically for him to boycott it because of these patch changes, which I've seen them, and like, I mean, they are, from what I've seen in the past, they're pretty drastic. Like, you don't get health back after you kill somebody. I think the material refund is like far less significant now. And one other major change, and I guess you can go back and play the previous patch on a different queue. The only problem is that those queue times are astronomically long. So that kind of is what triggered this whole. They're calling it a rage quit, but I don't think it really. I don't think I've seen rage quits, and that ain't a rage quit. I'll show you a Tyler 1 rage quit that really, like trumps this. But yeah, so it's really crazy to see. Like, I mean, what is this going to do for its player base? What is it going to do for its viewership? I guess somebody from Epic already reached out saying they'd address this, but I don't know, man. It's kind of scary and crazy to see one game so heavily influenced by one person to the point where the developers are only like almost like bending to his will. You know what I mean? It's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, I think having played Fortnite on stretch res, I mean, that's one of the major things too, right? That these players can no longer play on those for tournaments, and that's what matters, right? Stretch res in CS, if you guys remember, it's like it makes the hitbox just so much bigger, and
yeah,
he's mad, and it's understandably so, because if you're playing a game competitively, which Ninja is, he really wants every advantage he can get, and if he plays and practices same as all the other players, if he practices this one res, makes it so that hitting headshots is easier, building is easier, and doing all this practice on it, and then suddenly you're told that you can't play on those same settings, dude, I'd be mad too. Like, I'd be super mad. Like, I wouldn't rage quit, but I also just wouldn't stand for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna say, and apparently the big issue with that too is it came out a week before the spring skirmish, I think, and like it's such a small amount of time to adjust between the previous res and the new res that I think you're totally right. Like, I mean, this is why this happened, is like you spend countless hours with this res, and you have to relearn, and I think it's a bad move, and I think this is kind of because Fortnite isn't really. They have stupid amounts of money going into the competitive scene, but at the same time, I don't think they really know how to work around a competitive scene yet. I think they're still working out the bugs for that, which is weird because I feel like Epic should know, since Gears has been around for so long, they should have an idea of how to really manage a competitive scene, but we're kind of seeing that they don't.
I mean, we've seen this with a ton of games, like releasing patches, like sweeping patches that change things, right before like big events, and it's always gone over poorly. Like, it's never gone over well. So like, why would they think this is okay? Two, if they're so quick to change it, is it because they were kind of iffy on the change to begin with? They were like, it might do well, it might not. We'll just see how the community reacts. And just because, I don't want to say Ninja is the community, but like him and all his followers are a huge portion of it. They're a very vocal portion of that. And obviously he has this platform now to say these things. I just wonder if this is, someone in chat brought this up, but is this, maybe a new precedent for very large streamers? Like, do you think this is something that was 100% justified? Do you think we might see this again? Like, you might, maybe something less egregious, a streamer might come out and be like, oh, this is a problem. And since I'm basically the face of this game, I can have a larger say in how things go.
I like, for me, it's hard to see somebody who influences a single entity so much or a single game so much. He is very much an outlier in comparison to other games, because as well, other games also have massive competitive buildups as well. You know what I mean? So like the pros already know how to work around it, so they don't have to really worry about boycotting stuff like this. They just kind of enable it, and they still make their money, and they still play the game and stuff, right? Because they're contracted. They kind of have to, right? So, but Ninja's kind of the exception. Like, I mean, tons of people will like there's been so many patches in the league that have been nightmarish to play through, but players still play through it because they're contractually obligated. Ninja isn't. Ninja's making money off his stream, and that's the end of it. You know what I mean? And so he can do whatever the hell he wants because he's still making bank at the end of it.
Yeah, I think it's not that he's directly influencing them. It's that he's just expressing himself on Twitter and social media, and they're just like listening to him. You know, they just have like one guy in the office of Epic probably has like a tab. It's just like Ninja tweets. You know, just that open, and he reads it, then he goes to his boss and he goes like, "Hey, yeah, man, like Ninja just tweeted this. We have to make these changes ASAP." And it's like it's so it's not backwards at all, because if you think about it, all game companies do listen to their competitive player base a very large degree. Overwatch listens to the Overwatch players, League listens to their LCS pros, but not in the same way that Epic rapidly responds, because Epic's motto is to always change and like implement new things. So I mean, they're very, very adaptable. So if they hear one thing, or they hear one thing from Ninja, it just goes, let's just change it up right away. Let's just make the swap, and they're capable of doing it. Not like other games who take a more thought out approach, more a long term goal for their games, balancing and change. Fortnite's one of those games that's always like fast paced, change, and that probably plays into Ninja's favor.
Yeah, it's very much like a knee-jerk response, right? And I think that kind of thought process and that kind of decision-making is very dangerous for a developer. But again, like, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a case of this where one player has just influenced it so much. Like, I think a lot of people in, like, not only the esports, but, like, the gaming community as a whole are probably like, how do we deal with this? You know what I mean? How do we address this?
Yeah, this is definitely a different thing that we used to see. I mean, back in the day with StarCraft, right? I remember there being like player summits where they would like invite a bunch of players to like Blizzard HQ and like all sit down and talk about this, like a bunch of pro players, and like, oh, like we'll take that into consideration and make design changes based on that. But like that was kind of the extent of it. Like there wasn't a large like pulse on the community and how they're feeling about a lot of stuff. I mean, especially like in something that's highly competitive, it is interesting to listen to, I guess, like the mass outcry. And I mean, I understand it's just like a top tier player and all that, but like the design philosophies used to be, oh, let's just see what's happening at the very top level with, looking at basically tournaments and seeing what's going on in tournaments and adjust from there. But like you guys were saying, like they definitely have a pulse on the community and they're making changes directly what's happening in community, like on the stream level. So I don't know. I think it's a really interesting design philosophy. I don't think it's inherently wrong, but I definitely think it's different from what we see in most games.
Yeah, that might be why I don't like it so much, is that it's so foreign in comparison to the other ones, right? Like it's not, you have usually a huge pro scene to kind of adjust on, and a lot of teams do really adjust to competitive vice casual, right? But it's kind of flipped on its head for Fortnite. And the other thing it is too that I kind of wanted to address is that Ninja's also refusing to smurf. That's the other thing. That's why he's also boycotting the game. Is for quick queue times, he's refusing to make another account, so he plays against lower tier players. So I don't know how I feel about that, because pro players smurf, or like pro caliber players smurfing, and like for viewership and stuff like that is like how some guys make their brand. So it's kind of a weird route for me to kind of see Ninja taking. I kind of respect it, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, that's how we got here. You know what I mean? That's how we're getting to the guy boycotting a whole game. Yeah,
but I mean, I guess that goes into the question of, is smurfing a good thing or not? Because I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, a lot of top tier players smurf, but like if you think about it, it's, you're a high caliber player playing against lower tier players that you're not, equally matched up against to just demolish them, right? So what does that say about the game? And I think it's actually kind of good that Ninja's not doing it. It sets a good precedent. And I mean, that's his whole thing, right? Is that he's supposed to be like the streamer that you look up to or whatever. Like, regarding everything in his past, like pushing that aside, but like at least right now, just like, yeah, he's supposed to be like the good guy, right? Keeps it super clean, doesn't do anything like smurfing or anything like that. So I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good thing that he's doing that.
Yeah, it's like on the surface, it's a good thing, but I mean, this is also the guy who's like manipulating an entire game to really, suit his needs. You know what I mean? Like, because he has that influence.
But is it his fault? Is it his fault? Because I mean, it's not him saying like, "Listen, I'm going to hold your game hostage," or anything like that. It's more of he's just like, "I'm a player. I don't like this thing." Sure, he happens to have millions of followers on Twitch or Twitter, and tons of subs and viewers. But I mean, at the end of the day, he is a player and he's upset with it. Should he just play and not say anything?
Yeah, I mean, every player is upset with it too, not just him, right? So it's not just him. So I mean, he really speaks for the community itself. Since he just has the largest platform, doesn't mean that he's necessarily the one that deserves the flack for it. I mean, if they do make changes, it has to come from not just him, like Myth, all those other guys, base guys, the Liquid boys. Like, it has to come from all of them. And if they're all saying the same thing, then obviously something's wrong.
True, yeah. I just feel with a larger influence, you need to be a bit more, I don't know, a bit more touchy with how you word stuff. You know what I mean? And I think Ninja's not a dumb dude. He knows what his word kind of like merits. And I do appreciate him because he did start out trying to kind of justify Epic's changes and really trying to be like, well, okay, this is why they did X, this is why they did Y, and then he just kind of like snapped. So I don't know. I'm really torn on this. Because I like the dude. He's done some sketchy stuff, but I mean, like in comparison to what we've seen come out of Twitter and pro players and stuff like that, like I mean, he's pretty low on the chain for somebody with such a huge influence. So I'm hoping we see the proper route taken from Epic rather than just you said, like TSM, Liquid, they're all kind of saying the same stuff. So we're probably going to see a change in the near future. It's going to be interesting to see if this sort of behavior continues with only him.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of a good thing, I guess, that we're talking about, that him saying that he doesn't like the game is like the biggest controversy going on right now with him, compared to like other huge streamers, like starting like weird like cryptocurrency mining things and backgrounds to the website and starting literal cults. Shout out to my boy Thien.
Throwback.
So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's good that we're talking about this for him, and not anything substantially worse. But I think that's a good point to move on. So let's go and start talking about Project Overwatch, your favorite podcast within a podcast, where we just talk about Overwatch as we do. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was I think he's now my favorite personality on during the Overwatch League, and that's Danny. He is he does a lot of interviews and also translations too. Like he's like the perfect personality because it just like flows super well. He talks like he's funny. He talks to all the players very well, and he's him just like speaking and then translating and flipping back and forth it's like perfectly seamless. It's so awesome to watch. But he actually had like a slight mistake.
I can't even call it that. I
think he got baited, kind of.
Yeah, he did. He for sure got baited. Yeah, Jonah, do you want to fill everyone in on what happened?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm 37, had his first interview after his first match in OWL, and when Danny went to go talk to him, he asked him the question in English and then in Korean, and then when he gave it he put the mic over to I'm37, I'm37 took the mic and proceeded to answer in English with perfect English, and it just looked really, really funny because he just spent like a good 10 seconds translating what he just said into Korean. It was just like that was pointless, and it's just so funny. I mean, like,
and Danny was a good sport about it too. He's like, dude, you could have told me, right? Like, you could have let me know before I said it, right? And I mean, like, Danny, he really is like, as far as like competitive scene, he really stands out as one of the like one of the top tier translators because he does both the interview and the translation by himself. I haven't seen that in any other scene. He kind of stands alone in that regard. Jonah, do you know anybody else in any other scene that does that?
Suzy Kim did that for League of Legends LCK.
Oh my God, she did.
Yeah, the current youth development at C9 / London Spitfire. Yeah, she did that for LCK back in 2013.
Yeah, going back a bit, yeah.
And then also in StarCraft, Smix used to do that as well, I believe.
Yeah.
She was very, very good at that as well.
Tiny is still, yeah.
Yeah, but very few personalities out there who actually are able to fill this role.
Yeah. That's 3 out of the last 10 years. It's a pretty small sample considering how many leagues, how many games, how many how many countries we've seen. It's remarkable. It's great to see.
And Jonah, so you actually had experience with 37, right, in the Open division?
Yeah, we picked him up off of WaveCheck. Shout out to WaveCheck. We picked him up off just the ladder. Immediately when I decided that I wanted to coach Open this season, we were looking for players to join the roster. And when I was scouting around, I noticed there was one player that I played in comp queue against a lot, Z9 Hong. And I found out he was IM37. He played in scrims from March 7th to March 20th, so a good 2 weeks. And it turns out that, right afterwards, he was having talks with Second Wind. They were asking about him. I told their coach that, this is a great player. He's a great guy. He learns really fast. He's always receptive to information. He has great sense for the game, human empathy, and he has a solid communication. And not to mention, the insane mechanics that he also possesses too. So it's just added on layer of layer. And really, kind of just went from Open scrimming with us at WaveCheck, Cracklack and Matt Mann, Jade, Juby, and Panic, to just playing with Toronto Defiant in the span of less than a month.
That's a huge jump for him. As a player, that must be insane. To jump from, basically sitting on the ladder to, playing in the Overwatch League. That's huge. I can't imagine the kind of ramping up that would take on a player. I mean, I'm sure it must be pretty hard for him to be able to, start on the ladder, and obviously he's a really skilled player, but go from that to immediately going to LA, staying in the team house, practicing with the team, and then on the stage.
In less than a month. Yeah, in under 30 days. You could write a book on that. I'd read that. It's incredible. And the nice part was too, in his interview, he was super chill too, man. The guy has no nerves. He's not shied away. We do see with a lot of especially with the Overwatch League, where a lot of guys aren't used to media coverage and stuff like that. I'm 37, just kind of waltzed right in, became a huge sensation. His debut, you know what I mean? So yeah, it really speaks to the guy's character.
Yeah, he has a great personality. I mean, the only player other than him that I've worked with is Moth, and I think that him and Moth share the same trait, that they both have incredible amounts of human empathy. It's just that amount of care for another person makes it so that in-game, you're kind of more the one helping everybody else out, because you possess enough mechanical skill and enough knowledge of the game that you yourself, are helping out the other 5 heroes, the other 5 players too. And then also after the game, you're always the one that's listening to others. You're the one that goes, yes, that makes sense. Thank you for telling me that. And then both of them are just very, very personal people. And I think that 37 and Moth, they're going to be stars in the Overwatch League. It's just a blessing for me to have worked with them. I think that for my part, I can kind of tell then if a player has that extra chutzpah that puts them over the top, being a really solid player, or just another player.
So basically, what you're saying that is, if a player wants to go into the Overwatch League, they just need to go into one of your teams, then, right?
Is that what
you have the golden touch?
Basically, you just have to work with me long enough for me to find you an avenue to get to Overwatch League, whether that be through energy or second. Basically.
Yeah, not in so many words, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to take in everything that I say, because I'm a guy who talks and thinks a lot. If you're able to take in all the information I say and just use it almost instantly, because you yourself are just incredibly talented as a player and you're receptive and nice to your teammates and nice to everybody else, there's no reason why you can't make Overwatch League. I mean, everybody knows that everyone in the game at the top tier level is already insane mechanically, right? You have ladder players like that are just incredibly talented, right? That could out-aim Overwatch League talent players. But what makes the difference between an Overwatch League player, a Contenders, and Open player isn't the age restriction, isn't like if you're good enough at clicking heads or not. It's actually just how good you are at working with your teammates, your coaches, and other people in general. How much empathy you have for them, and how much you want it too.
Yeah, I think that's a good transition from like a meme statement to like actually something kind of profound. That like there are so many good players out there, and I mean we've seen people go like this is a perfect example of someone going from a ladder to Open to like right into the Overwatch League, and there's still a ton of players and teams and Contenders. I mean, we saw Runaways go from Contenders into Overwatch League, and they're killing it now. So I mean, yeah, I do think that everyone's skill in all these different divisions are really close, and the things that really push them even further to be top tier teams is just how well that they gel together as teams, the coaching staff, and just that extra bit of empathy.
Yeah, it's definitely a really solid team environment, really good teamwork and execution by the players, trust from the coaching staff. It's all those like very buzzwords that you hear in your self-help books, but just actually done. And that's the difficult part, is just actually doing it. Because like anytime you have a conversation with someone, you could very easily just, out ego them with, oh yeah, but I'm like top rank 1 on ladder. Or like, oh yeah, I hit like top 500 every season. So it's like, I'm just better. But you can't have that attitude, that mentality, that mindset go into, a team environment, because you're just not going to be able to work with these guys. And that's what really sets these players apart. I mean, when it comes down to it, why would a general manager who's like 30 to 40 years old, right, want to work with a kid that just isn't nice at all to anybody else, isn't nice to them, isn't nice to anybody? They want to work with the guy that's professional, that's nice to people, that acts, very clean, that has this very good persona about him, not a bad reputation, not a good reputation exactly, just enough that, puts them, into the hardworking category, that sets a good example for us that they think is marketable.
I want to add that's also marketable, right? Like
exactly.
That's such a huge thing too, right?
Yeah, you really want to, when we talked about the FGC, that whole etiquette thing, you want to be like that social person that's able to get along with people. It's exactly that skill set that you need to bring into Overwatch too, because, you're playing next to the person. You obviously have, a much better feel for them, right? But when you're playing at home with other 5 players all online versus another 6 players all online, you don't have that same empathy anymore. It's pretty much just you versus the world in your head. But when you think about it on stage, it's really that empathy that matters, right? You look over your teammate, they're just having a downtime. They just missed like 3 shots. They choked, they whiffed, they did whatever. And just your ability to look over and cheer them up or just give off an air of confidence and that air of sustainability and that air of stability, that really, really kind of just that extra aura that you bring to the team, whether that be through verbal, nonverbal, whatever, body language, that makes you a better player. That just makes you a better teammate, and that makes you a better person too, which is what the Overwatch League wants. Good people that are good professionals too.
So how would that translate to someone who might be a top ladder player who, they have really good mechanical skills, but they really want to take it to that next level, play super well on teams, kind of take it to that next step to really, maybe go into Open, Contenders, and eventually Overwatch League? What kind of skills can they pick up by themselves? I mean, this is not only a question for you, but a question for James. Because James, I know you worked with a lot of players, and I'm sure you have identified some of these things that just, as people, what makes them work well on teams.
Honestly, I hate to say Jonah kind of hit everything, but he really did. You need somebody who knows how to work in a team environment, who recognizes how a player, how another person is reacting, and really knows how to read. I'm not saying you have to be a master at reading people, but you need to understand, okay, this performance is affecting X player. I can't be my usual overbearing self. I need to show that empathy that that is required, because if I keep perpetuating this and this guy continues to keep having a horrible time, we're not going to get better. We're only going to get worse, and we're going to perform worse overall, right? And that's the hardest thing to find for a lot of these guys is guys who are very much in that mindset of me versus the world, right? Because they're a solo queue player, they're a ladder player or whatever, right? and that's where their heads at the entire time is like, I need to carry this game. I need to be the best player. Well, you're on a team. If you want to get to the pro scene, you want to get to get to open, get to contenders, all that stuff. You need to recognize that it's not you against the world anymore, and you need to recognize that you're playing with 5 human beings who are your teammates, and that really, a teammate in like a competitive sense and a teammate in a solo queue sense are two very, like, the same word, very different meanings. You know what I mean? And you really need to recognize how to really, and like all those things that we talked about the FGC really enables. You really need to get those skills and put them to work, which is weird because the FGC, where they're so huge on it, the top player doesn't usually exclude all those top qualities. I have a bit of a bone to pick with Sonic Fox, but I mean, like, because the guy he's brash, he's overbearing, he's all that stuff. But I've seen him like interact with people, and he's still good. But it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm having this epiphany while I'm talking. Is that the top player in a game that promotes such good social skills really isn't some of those qualities at all. So, but yeah, no, that's as far as like core qualities that makes a good teammate. Those are like, I mean, I hate to say Jonah took like pretty much everything, but he kind of did. You know what I mean? Which shows why Rutgers does so well. You know what I mean? Like, even when I was managing, like I'd watch Rutgers play. It was like, okay, these guys are doing a lot of stuff right. This isn't good.
Yeah, I mean, what it really comes down to is I think you need great people to work with. Like, they all need to be on the same page, hardworking. And for you as a ladder player, if you want to break into the pro scene, you really need to understand the game at a really hypothetical level. Really theory-wise, you need to understand, like, if this happens, what do you do? You also understand ultimate state economy, like the ultimate economy and the state of it. So if you are looking into getting into pro at a game, one thing that I highly recommend is watching the pro game and then pausing it. And when you pause it, you just think about, from your perspective role, from both sides, what is the best course of action you can take? Why? And then you would play the video, and then you would watch it actually play out, see what everyone does. And then you learn, okay, did this player make the correct decision? Did this player make the correct decision? Would I do this in my case too? Why did they do that? And then obviously you take that, you remember it, you apply it into your memory as an experience, and you go out and do that. And when you go out and do that, you show that you're capable of doing it. Coaches like you, teammates like you. Overwatch League.
Nice. I think that was all really good stuff. We should at some point do like a longer sit down and hear more wisdom from Jonah, because that was really good stuff. And James, obviously, with that insight as well. Very good stuff, guys. So I actually just want to move on now to a few things a little bit quickly, because we do have actually a viewer question to go into. So we'll go through these next two stories a little bit more quickly to wrap up the Overwatch news. But there was a post by Effect this past week just saying that he was retiring from the game, and definitely a very emotional post. And there was someone that came out and translated it as well from Korean to English, but definitely a lot of emotional stuff in that tweet. Definitely go check it out if you're a fan of Effect, just to see what he was going through. He was going through a lot, and I hope this is definitely the right move for him. Seemed like he was under a lot of stress, so hopefully this puts him to a place where he's not as stressed. I know he has a lot of fans out there too, so he said he's going to still be making content on Overwatch to sustain himself. So hopefully this is something that it's a good move for him, and he's kind of getting the help that he needs and support structure that he needs.
Yeah, we'll have the post linked to the episode when it goes up tomorrow, guys. But yeah, no, read through it, because it really shows, unfortunately, what can happen when you kind of let something fester a little bit. And I don't put any blame and Effect for kind of putting off what he's been doing for so long, because he's found avenues that he really feels better about doing stuff, and he's been it's stuff that had made him feel better. But it's also great to see that he acknowledges he needs to do something about it, and he's seeking medical attention, seeking from what I read, the proper avenues to really address something like this, and that's really good to see, especially from a self-realization, not somebody telling him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Effect one of those guys that season 1 he wants to be the best player, season 2 he wants to be the best team player. You saw a lot of evolution from him from a mentality standpoint. But really, when you have things that fester and you don't take care of them, it just deteriorates your mental state to the point where you just want to give up, And when you want to give up, you can't compete anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely, really sad news, but definitely a lot of love, and the love from the fans has been really nice. I hopefully he's definitely seeing a lot of that, and I know he knows that the fans are out there because he said he's going to keep making content for them. And like I said, hopefully this is a really good move for him, and he gets the kind of support network that he needs. So moving on to the last thing that we had for Overwatch. Going to keep this one short because don't want the gamers to really get on us about this. But Blizzard, as a long story short, someone threw up the OK sign during one of the live streams. Blizzard approached the fan and said, "Hey, can you not do that?" It's kind of a not so great connotation nowadays. And then Slasher, I guess, picked up on the news and he tweeted out and became a very big story. Any short reactions that you guys have about this situation?
Oh no! So I know how Dylan feels about this, so I'm not saying Jack. But if you want to know how Dylan feels about this, Dylan, what can?
If you want to know my full opinion on this, you can go to poppedoff.com where I wrote an article about it and why it's a good thing. Definitely fought a lot of people on Reddit yesterday. So please don't make me die in vain over this one.
You're gonna die on that hill, buddy.
Yeah. But anyways, that was Project Overwatch, a podcast within a podcast where we just talked about Overwatch. Gonna go to I guess kind of a related note onto a viewer question, and it comes from longtime friend of the pod, Robert, who asked, what are the true prerequisites for entry into the block TM? Boomers, gamers, it's a pretty diverse group. Who gets put into the block? So I guess as a person who decides who gets the block, definitely boomers and gamers now. For sure now gamers get the block after this past week of me just speaking with them. But I think the true prerequisite is just people who just deserve it, I guess. Boomers deserve it because they're trying to take down esports. Gamers are taking down esports, weirdly enough, self-sabotaging. I guess if someone's against the overall dream to have our gamer utopia, I guess they get the block. But so that's my prerequisite at least. If you want to ask a question, have your question featured on the show, send us an email over at contact@poppedoff.com, or you can just tweet at us. We'll answer your question on the show. No more questions about the block because I think we hit that. We had that quite a bit. So we'll cool the block off a little bit.
We've had the block to the point where it's been trademarked. So I mean,
yeah, there's a TM there.
There's a TM there. Yeah, exactly, right?
All right. So James, we're gonna fire through these last couple questions real quick, or the last couple honorable mentions. So stories. I'll take the first one. You take the last two. Okay. We're gonna get through them quick.
Gotcha.
Though. All right. So
Rapid
first thing,
fire, baby. Let's do it.
Kibler doesn't know what yeet means. Gonna leave it there. No more context.
That's it. Next one. We finally have the dream match of SKT versus Griffin over in the LCK. Everybody's excited. Everybody's stoked. This is the hero storyline versus the villain versus the new upstart and the longtime hero. It's going to be sick. And the other one was, so I got to double check. Support T3 League of Legends. Support not just the academy, but the guys below the academy. Where Rutgers is, where Honor used to be, they're not there anymore. But like right now, High has moved in to really support that with Radiance. Jonah, I don't know if you've seen any of that movement with him basically starting up a amateur esports org.
Yeah, Radiance, the positivity.
Yeah, exactly, right? So that's become a new thing. It's super dope. Go check that out. And yeah, support the stuff that feeds into Academy because they desperately need it. Right?
Yeah, they should support WaveCheck.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Plugs.
They should support Tier 3 Overwatch. That would be very cool.
Support Tier 3 everything. Support all the tiers. They all deserve.
All right, so thanks, James, for helping us get through those real quick, which leads us to the very end of the show. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in, whether you were watching or listening to the Project Esports podcast. And thanks for Jonah for stopping by and giving us really good insight into some sick coaching insight, I guess. Yeah, mess up on those words, but yeah. So thanks, Jonah. Why don't you give everyone a nice plug? Tell us all about what you do, where people can find you, projects that you're working on, events that you're going to be at. Just give us it all.
So Jonah, my name, at Jonah Reads on Twitter and Twitch. I stream not so regularly, but it's mostly coaching VOD reviews of people that submit them. You can also find me on Instagram, also at Jonah Reads. And the main thing is that I will be at the NYXL Mixer this Thursday in Hoboken, New Jersey. Also, the Scarlet Classic / the Spring Rally. Of course, that will be April 14th. And also the Collegiate Esports ESPN show on May 8th, I believe. I'll also be in Houston for that. And of course, shout out to Wave Check, OW, boys, the lads, the team. We're going to do well this, OD season. We're already 6-0. We're pretty much projected to be in contenders by next season. And I hope to live up to those expectations. And we will see you guys when I am in Academy or something. Or maybe Overwatch League. We'll never know, but that's about it.
Nice. James, thank the people, please.
I do want to thank the people. I want to thank all the people who stopped by and chat. We had a pretty good chat group tonight. It was great. And any of our listeners who are going to tune in once it goes up, I also want to give a special shout out to both my mom and my dad, because they both took the effort. My mom had work off tonight, so they both listened. They both watched tonight, and it was great. I've been trying to answer my father with questions as the show's gone on. So gotta give the shout out to him. So thank you so much, guys.
And you can find us here at twitch.tv/popped_off every single Monday, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time for the live show. And then you can find us the following day, every single Tuesday morning on all podcast platforms. I'm talking every single one: Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean. There's a ton of them out there. Just wherever you get your podcasts, you can find them. And you can also find the live video on YouTube at Popped Off. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. We'll do this impromptu. I'm Dylan.
I'm James.
I'm Jonah.
Hey.
Thanks everyone.